Park Chung-hee was the most consequential leader of South Korea in its 80-year history. Born in 1917 to a poor, rural family in Gumi, when the country was a colony of Japan, his prospects as a young adult was limited. Like many men of his generation, he would go on to join the Japanese army, where he was trained in Manchuria and Tokyo. It was there that he adopted an affinity for Japan and its Meiji Restoration. When World War II ended, he joined the newly created South Korean army, where he was given further training. Despite his pro-Japanese past, in 1946 he joined the Korean Workers' Party. He was later arrested for this and came close to being killed. Instead, he was fortunate enough to continue his career in the army and fought in the Korean War for the South. His post-war career saw him rise to the top of the South Korean military, leaving him in an influential position, which he used to his advantage in the 1960s. In 1961, after just a year of democratic rule following Syngman Rhee's exile, Park instigated a bloodless military coup. This ushered in 18 years of uninterrupted rule by Park, where he led at varying times as a civilian, albeit authoritarian president, and as a full-blown military dictator. His most infamous creation as leader was the Korean Central Intelligence Agency, or KCIA. It quickly became the most feared organization in the country and became notorious for murdering, kidnapping, and torturing of his political opponents. Along with the military, it was also used routinely to crack down on protests and strikes. As a now militant anti-communist, despite his past, he was widely supported by the United States, who appreciated South Korea's deployment of troops to Vietnam in 1964. Park's grip on the country reached new heights during the 1970s. The KCIA was given a wider leash to crack down on his opponents. Dissent was met with violence. In August 1973, opposition leader Kim Dae-jung was kidnapped by Park and taken out in a fishing boat to be drowned. He was only spared when a Japanese plane flew directly over the ship as a warning. By intervention of the US ambassador and Japanese ambassador to South Korea, his life was spared. Most were not so lucky. In 1974, Park's wife was shot dead by a bullet meant for him. He grew more isolated and increasingly unpopular. Something had to change, and indeed it did. In 1979, Park was shot dead by his close friend Kim Jae-ju, the director of the KCIA, while having dinner. His 18 years of rule was over, but despite his violence, 2 million Koreans attended his funeral, many genuinely mournful. Why? Because of the miracle on the Han River. Following the Korean War, the country was incredibly poor. In fact, it was one of the poorest countries in the world. Park changed this. He brought in reforms which fueled industrialization. The nation underwent what is known as compressed development. In barely 3 decades, South Korea's economy developed at a rate which took Western countries 1 to 200 years to accomplish. Between 1963 and 1979, the GDP rate grew by 10% per year. This became known as the miracle on the Han River, after the body of water that flows through Seoul. Imagine being born a peasant on a farm your parents rented from a local landlord. You are illiterate and your parents have always struggled to feed you. You lived through Japan's colonization, World War II, and the Korean War by the time you are 20. By the time you are 50, you live in a modern apartment with appliances such as a TV and fridge. You eat 3 times a day, as does your children. You have a decent job at a local factory, albeit you work long hours. If you are lucky, you may be saving some money to go on a holiday. That radical change was experienced by millions of Koreans under Park's dictatorship. While development created new social problems in the country, nobody could doubt that Park had improved the nation by the time of his death, at least economically. Park's legacy remains complicated, naturally so given the circumstances. He was a brutal dictator and an economic revolutionary. Because of his reforms, South Korea is now one of the wealthiest nations on earth. But he also oppressed his own people to get there, and his authoritarian governments led to brutal crackdowns on Korea's democracy movements. His popularity was sufficient for his daughter to be elected president in 2013. Park Geun-hye, as she is known, received most of her support from Korea's elderly. They remembered her father's rule and how it had changed the country. Park Chung-hee's story is a reminder of the complexities of leaders and how they can improve or devastate their people's lives. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.